Hi there, and welcome to this first episode of the podcast, Artcast, Kimcast, the video podcast series where I, Kim Diaz Holm, also known as Den Unge Herr Holm, talk about whatever I want to talk about. I don't quite know yet. I'm not really following a grand plan. I'm doing this out of necessity. So we're figuring it out as we go along. For those who don't know me, I'm a visual artist from Bergen, Norway. I've done a bit of everything really. Fine art, illustration, comics. I've worked a lot with metal music, doing covers and videos for bands like verywe and Solstafir and more. And I have been drawing live concerts, standing by the side of the stage, headbanging, and drawing whatever's happening when people are playing extreme music. Now, politically and philosophically, I'm an anarchist, which doesn't really have all that much to do with day to day. It doesn't really have all that much practical impact, but it is one of the factors that has led me to release my art for free use under Creative Commons licenses, so you can download like over 2,000 high-res pieces of art for free use from me. I do this to argue for copyright reform because I believe that free use and open source is the only way forward for society. Now, lastly, I'm a dad and I have 2 kids and I have a wife and I'm bipolar, so I'm struggling with my mental health, and juggling all of this, it's a challenge. And that will probably be the backbone of this podcast. I will talk about art and artist life and work, and I can go into the details on that, to the nitty-gritty. I want to talk about entertainment and all the stuff I like, music and politics and copyleft, and of course mental health. Now, I would hope and like this to be interesting for artists and helpful for people struggling with mental health, and entertaining for people who just would like to be entertained. So, anyhow, let's just jump in. In the video version of this, you will be able to follow along with me drawing at the same time as you listen. Now, the first episode is not the longest, but I have decided to tackle a huge topic. I've decided to try to solve how to deal with the problem of social media. As a visual artist, social media is simply an amazing tool which allows us to connect with our fans and collectors all over the world, and it allows for your art to spread like a virus based on its artistic power and virtue and some of your luck and promotional skills, but mostly it's spreading based on you do awesome art and it will spread by being awesome. And nothing like this has ever been available for artists before. And most of my income, whether it's from sales or commissions or crowdfunding or jobs, comes directly or indirectly from my presence on social media. My community, fans, friends, colleagues, clients, are largely connected to me through social media. Now, there are many, many dark sides to this, and they are mostly kind of obvious. Now, on a personal level, how the social media algorithms exploit my worst insecurities in order to get me addicted to the clicks and the likes. This is potentially troubling for anyone, but from someone suffering from bipolar disorder and anxiety or having other mental health issues, this can be really destructive. And it's like a machine designed to claw away at your psyche, and to deal with it in a sane way, You have to exhibit a lot of willpower, which I don't always have, and organize your interactions with it in a way that doesn't allow you to become addicted. And organization isn't really my strong suit. In addition, as a father, it's really troubling to me to see how much time I and other parents spend staring into the void of our phones instead of interacting with our kids. Like right now, I'm talking to my phone instead of playing with my kids. But I pretend it's work, so it's okay. Anyhow, these are immensely complex issues that will have to be dealt with on their own, so maybe I'll dedicate another podcast to social media and mental health, or just to being a dad on social media. We'll see. The next issue is, of course, how we, no matter our political or philosophical stance, are actively promoting the social media platforms we use just by using them. And we're getting more and more people to willingly give private corporations unprecedented surveillance information, which we know they share not only to advertisers and clients, but to their respective governments. So it's not, you don't have to be a genius to know how Donald Trump knows TikTok is effectively spying for the Chinese government, because Facebook and Google have effectively been spying for the US government whenever they have needed it. And third-party governments like Russia don't seem to have much trouble finding ways to manipulate social media or finding useful information on it. So everyone knows what's happening, and just by using Facebook or TikTok, we're all accomplices. Ethical consumption under capitalism. Isn't it fun? But all of this is very removed from the daily life of most artists. And most of us are, in my estimation, not international spies or at the spear point of any cultural or violent revolution. We have our heads down, we're concerned with making art and making a living, and preferably making a living in a way that allows us to make more art. So for artists, or for me specifically, the most pressing concern with social media is the inherent unreliability of outsourcing your whole damned network of communication to algorithms controlled by our lovely corporate overlords. Trusting in social media to carry your whole business model, that's dangerous. Loads of artists felt it when the following they built on MySpace was suddenly worthless. Or when Instagram changed their algorithm so that growing as an artist became almost impossible without big advertising budgets. Or even reaching your own fans became something they expect you to pay for. Now, I don't actually mind paying to communicate with my followers, but again, the unreliable nature of Facebook and Instagram advertising leaves a lot to be desired for individual artists or small businesses with very limited promotion budgets. It's almost like it's not made for us anymore. And that's okay. What's not okay is being beholden to fickle corporate censorship, easily manipulated by conservative trolls or progressive justice warriors alike. I once got shut out from posting on my Facebook page for 48 hours without any warning or explanation, minutes after posting a drawing where you could glimpse a couple of ink lines in the shape of Odin's penis. Now, it wasn't a rude or lewd image, it wasn't pornographic or exploitative, but you could see a divine ding-dong. And if you look through my body of work, there's more than a handful godly genitalia. So, Other artists I've known or interacted with have had their accounts permanently banned, often because of artistic nudity in their work, and sometimes because of political statements. And yeah, I know what you're thinking. Is political a code word for conservative, or right-wing, or maybe racist? And there's probably elements of that. Yeah, there might be. And we should have some limits somewhere. But if you think that something like Antifa has any place in the mainstream marketplaces of corporate social media, outside of this very brief flirt inspired by that orange menace in the White House, then, well, you probably haven't dug all that deep in the history of corporate, academic, and state-sanctioned censorship of anarchist ideas. If you let corporations control free speech, the only ones who will have a voice is customers. And speaking of that orange reality star, the whole reason why I'm starting this podcast is that I opened an account on TikTok back in March. And in half a year, it's grown to almost 100,000 followers. And I know that 100k isn't all that much in the grand scheme. And I've yet to figure out how to incorporate it in my overall business plan. And I know this, but for me, it's huge and I'm having so much fun. On TikTok, I've found an audience who are not only really receptive to my art, but also likes what I say. And most shockingly for me, who was teased for my speech impediments all through school, I've found an audience who seem to think my voice is pleasurable to listen to. I've found a bunch of weirdos and outcasts who seem to think I'm worth a damn. And now 50% of that audience will probably disappear. As I said before, Trump knows that TikTok is probably giving data to the Chinese government because that's what Facebook and Google are doing in the US. So in a presidency filled with terrible decisions, this one is probably, it probably makes more sense than any of the others. But for me, as an artist in Norway, it doesn't really matter if it's sensible policy or not. I'm losing half my audience. So how do you deal with that? Well, in dealing with social media, it's always good to diversify. So that's why I'm starting this video podcast, because that can give me a regular outlet to post on YouTube and Facebook and also on podcast apps or whatever. I have no idea yet. But diversifying on social media takes so much time. So even if you use a third-party platform like Later or Buffer or Hootsuite or whatever to manage your various accounts, making videos that work for TikTok, Facebook, Instagram and YouTube, and that can be podcast, is a whole challenge. So the video I'm doing for this podcast, I'm recording in higher resolution, which is taking up more space on my phone, and I'm placing the art I'm drawing in the middle of the shot, so I hopefully can re-edit it to work on TikTok and Instagram TV, and all of this takes up so much time and energy, and time and energy is often what artists have the least of. The most important way of diversifying is, of course, investing outside of the social media platforms. Having a website, which I don't, and managing a newsletter and a mailing list, which I don't. And, at least for me, it's incredibly difficult to prioritize this, since it's a lot of work for almost no immediate value, since no one ever goes on a website anymore or reads a newsletter. Still, if and when I get this podcast off the ground, website and newsletter is probably the next thing I should look at. And that's sort of the quick solution for artists and social media. simply become a Superman and post quality content on every platform, all the while driving a steady base of supporters to platforms that you own yourself. And that's not really realistic. Not for one person. So I probably need to start reaching out for help. And that's one of the hardest things to do for me. Both being a control freak and giving up control, and also finding people who both understand what I'm doing and can be trusted to work for the same goal. And then getting the finances to support not only me and my family, but employees? I don't know. Will it happen? I don't know. But if I'm going to make it, then I will need help. So let's step away from the narrow artist problems and solve the much easier problem of the socio-political consequences of social media. Of course, I'm half joking when I say that problem is easier, but only half joking. Do you want social media that's not exploiting your addictive tendencies, not selling your personal information to advertisers, not spying on you for your government, and not polarizing and causing strife to drive up engagement, and generally not acting like a destructive force? There really is only one solution, and it's as easy as it is far-fetched. For social media to not be a force of destruction, we need to regulate it so that all software is open source. If social media companies were forced to share their source code for both their apps and their algorithms, and both the public and competitors could inspect, modify, and redistribute it as their own, then the security holes would get fixed, unethical actors would get exposed, and every user would demand encryption that actually protects their data. As it is today, all the social media companies could opt to use already existing encryption that would make your social media information yours and yours alone. But since they own the proprietary code to their platforms, they instead opt to pretend to keep our data safe behind their locked doors while they're openly selling it to advertisers and willingly giving it to governments. The only reason why this scheme can keep going, and the only reason why algorithms can be built with such disregard for the end user, for you, is because the code is proprietary. Because governments all around the world has legislated that they will use force if anyone tries to inspect, modify, or copy the code. Code that's designed to prey upon your weakness and to sell your data. So, of course, the world going open source overnight isn't realistic. Pioneers like Richard Stallman, who founded the free and open source movement, have taken a principled stance, swearing off social media, smartphones and computers with proprietary software, and basically ending up off the grid. Now, I admire that a lot, and it's absolutely the right thing to do in principle, but I'm not about to do it myself. I'm too much in love with my comforts, both as an artist and a consumer of culture. I like my Nintendo, I like my Netflix, and I need my goddamn TikTok. What I do try to do is use as much open source software as possible, working on a Linux operating system and working in free and open source programs like GIMP and Firefox. And that's not really enough to enact any real change. But change needs to start somewhere. So how about starting in schools, not using proprietary software? That seems like a minimum, both because of the privacy concerns and because right now we're paying huge corporations to allow us to use their software to teach kids to use their software so they can grow up and pay for using their software themselves. This isn't right. This isn't sane. Or what about city or region or government offices? Why are we allowing them to use proprietary software? We know it's not safe. It doesn't make sense. I don't know. I I know that's the solution to the current situation which we're in with social media is that we need to go open source, but I don't know how to accomplish that. I'm accused of a lot of things, but being practical minded is not one of them. Anyhow, if you listen this far, then I hope you've enjoyed whatever this is or whatever this will be. If you have counterpoints or ideas for what I can do with this format in the future, then do send me a message. And of course, subscribe to all my social media around the net, because social media is so important. This is a lousy way to end this episode, but still, here we go. I'm Den Unge Hadholm on YouTube, Den Unge Hadholm on Instagram, Den Unge Hadholm on TikTok, and Den Unge Hadholm on Facebook. So subscribe to all of those. Den Unge Hadholm, it's such a nice and easy name to say, especially for you foreigners. If you like this podcast, or if you like my art, or if you just want to support more free art, then you can support me on patreon.com/KimHolm, where you can give me a monthly sum so I can continue doing shit like this. And last but not least, I'm an artist making art for free use. The best way to support me is to actually use my art. So go to denungehadholm.smugmug.com, look through the over 2,000 free pieces I have available in high-res. If you see something you like, download it, use it, send it to a friend, send it to your grandmother. And with that, I think we are out.